Good day, Hadley and Philemon. This is Mr. Ernesto shooting live from Ernie's kitchen. Stay tuned. So as I mentioned in some of my shows that I will have a guest in our kitchen. So today I managed to get an interview with James Tickell. He's a member of the Hall of Fame and Philemon Wright. He's one of the head coaches of our football team, senior, and with a lot of success over the years. But most importantly, he's a firefighter. He works for the Ottawa Fire Department. So I wanted to bring him here to our kitchen to ask him a lot of questions regarding fires and other precautions that people should keep in mind while maybe cooking or doing anything that may cause a fire. So no more introduction. Here's James Tickell.
Thanks, Mr. Ernesto, for inviting me to speak to your class today. Your students, I know it's been a crazy time with everything that's going on and how everybody's been locked down here for the last couple of months, but it's good that everybody's doing their part in trying to get through this period in time. I'd be happy to speak to you guys a little bit about working with the Ottawa Fire Service, and thanks for inviting me.
So Coach Tickell, thanks so much for being with us here in Ernie's kitchen. We appreciate your time. So there goes my first question. What are the most common accidents that you guys, firefighters, get called for?
The most common cause of accidents for fire in homes probably comes down to a number of specific things. One would be unattended smoking. So people that smoke, they fall asleep watching TV or whatever, and they have let a cigarette continue to burn. It falls out, it gets onto something else, and slowly a fire develops. And when the person is awoken, they're often awoken by a room full of smoke, and now they're in trouble, and anybody else in the house is in trouble in terms of trying to get out safely. Number two would be, I would say, probably unattended candles. A lot of people burn candles, again, in their bedrooms, and will either leave their bedroom or fall asleep and leave those candles burning, and often too close to other materials that can catch on fire. A lot of people will set candles in their windowsill, and the heat builds up, it rises. If it's too close to the curtains, the drapes, then next thing you know, they're on fire, and slowly but surely everything else is on fire. Okay, so those are two of the reasons. There's a whole host of other reasons, talking about electrical issues and all sorts of other things, but I would say the most common cause, and I think it's quite relevant to what we're talking about with your cooking class, is the most common cause would probably be due to cooking. We get a lot of calls where we go to fires where people have left a pot on the stove unattended. They either start to cook something late at night, fall asleep, forget, whatever's in the pot begins to burn, the cupboards above begin to burn, the roof begins, or the ceiling begins to burn, travels to other cupboards, and so on, and it gets out of hand quite quickly. So it can be, like I said, cooking due to unattended cooking due to falling asleep, or it could be unattended cooking due to forgetting, getting distracted, and you got a pot on the stove or something, and then you get a call. Let's say you have to head to the airport to pick somebody up, and you wanted to make a coffee quickly before you left, or a tea, and your kettle was too packed away, and you decided to boil a little in water in the pot. You forget about it, you head out the door, and the next thing you know, you're arriving home and the fire department's at your house. So these things can happen to anybody, and they just take a little bit of concentration. So I'd say the biggest thing to do is when you're heading out the door, obviously, first of all, try not to cook late at night. Try not to turn on the stove and get into the whole big deal of cooking something that's going to take some time late at night when you're already tired. Number two, if you're heading out after cooking, then it should be sort of the checklist that you have at your door. Do I have my keys? Do I have my wallet? Whatever else you need with you. And third or fourth, did I leave anything on? Did I leave the stove on? And all that little miniature checklist in your head as you're going out the door. Just kind of get in the habit of replaying it so that you're heading out and you're making sure that your house is safe for when you come back.
All right, here's the next question. What happens after we make a 911 phone call? Let's say, fire here, I can't handle it, I use a fire extinguisher, got out of hand, call 911, right? I explain the situation, I give them my address, my name, and so on. So what happens next?
When a 911 call comes through, and hopefully none of you ever have to make a 911 call, but if you were to call 911, you're going to get through to dispatch, and that dispatch sorts out quickly whether it's what type of emergency it is. Do you need fire? Do you need an ambulance? Do you need police? So for medical calls or fires and fire alarms, we're going to, the Ottawa Fire Service is going to respond to those. So our dispatch will take that call, and then they will find out what area of the city the call is coming from and where the help is needed, and then they send an alarm to our station. When we're at work for 24 hours, so we arrive at 6:30 in the morning, we stay till the following 6:30 in the morning the following day, is what I'm trying to say. And so anytime in that 24-hour period, if there's any calls that come in, we need to be able to respond to those calls. The call comes into the station, as I was saying, and there's tones that go throughout the station, and those tones vary depending on the type of emergency. If it's a medical call, it's a certain type of tone. If it's a water rescue, it's a different type of tone. If it's to do with a fire issue, it's a tone specific to that. Also, the level of emergency is signified in the tone. So some calls are considered priority 1, which is an emergency that we're going to respond to as fast as we can with lights and siren. And then a priority 2 call is maybe something that is not quite so severe or not as urgent. Maybe an alarm just needs to be reset, or maybe it's a smell of smoke, but there's no specific fire that they can see. So we're going to go and investigate, and we might not be going lights and sirens at that point in time, unless we get a call along the way that has been upgraded to something more serious. But oftentimes, especially in the summer, we're going to get calls of the smell of smoke, and that's from people either continuing to burn in their fireplace with other people having their windows open, or people having fires within city limits that's not usually permitted. So I guess that's kind of basically what happens. The call comes into the station, we figure out what type of emergency it is. We have about a minute to get from wherever we are in the station to get dressed and on the truck, and as long as it's a priority 1 call, and then we head out to the call and hopefully arrive to the call within 2 or 3 minutes.
Thank you so much, Coach Tickell, for answering all these questions. My next question is, how do you become a firefighter? I know some of my grade 11 students at some point might have thought about applying to become a firefighter, but what's the procedure?
In terms of looking for a career with the fire service, Ottawa Fire Service, or in Hull, or in any other jurisdiction in Canada, the most common way to get hired these days is probably going through a pre-service course that's offered at one of the colleges. For instance, in the Ottawa area, the fire pre-service course is offered at Algonquin College. You can still be hired without specific educational training in the fire service, at least in Ontario. And that's if you've had a number of years as a volunteer in a volunteer fire department. If you have trades or education that can be considered of use to the fire service, these are all other ways that you could possibly be hired without actually having a pre-service course. But I'd say the vast majority of people, young people being hired these days, are being hired through the programs that are specifically designed to educate you for the fire service.
There you go, guys. You heard it from Coach Tickell. So if you're interested in becoming a firefighter, you can always follow his info here. My next question, Coach Tickell, what is the most dangerous situation that you ever been to, like as a firefighter?
So the most dangerous situation I've probably been in, and probably most firefighters would say something similar, is that are in situations where fires happen in basements, and that can be for a number of different reasons. Whether it's just through improper storage of combustible materials, or from having too many items plugged into one electrical outlet, possibly from work being done in a basement. It's often where shops are in people's homes where they build stuff, and so due to the tools that they're using, or probably the most common way would be from houses that have separate basement apartments. And so often what you'll have is fires that begin from cooking or from unattended smoking or unattended candles. And when that fire begins down there, it's probably the most dangerous situation to put out a fire for a firefighter. And the reasons for that are, first of all, you're heading down into a basement through the only path, or the biggest path for smoke and heat to come out of. There's normally some smaller windows in a basement, but heat's going to travel out on the easiest path, and that's normally the staircase. So the way the smoke and the heat's coming out is the way that we got to go through that down to get to the seat of the fire. And so that's reason number one. The second reason would probably be because of the lack of visibility. There's less lighting often in basements, especially at nighttime. With a high level of smoke and not a lot of lighting, you can often not see much more than a couple inches in front of your face. So you're searching for the fire, you're searching and feeling, mostly by feel, for any rescues that need to happen. And at the same point in time, you got to be worried about other things. If there's too much heat, how are we getting out? Are we going to be able to find our way out fast enough? Especially because there's, like I said, generally only one way out. If you're on the second floor or the main floor or third floor, you can always exit through a window if you have to. As we said, in basements, windows are smaller. It's much more difficult to get out a basement window. They're also higher, so you're gonna have to climb up to a higher height to try to even get out of one of those windows if it was big enough to escape. And then I'd say the third danger that we face in basement fires is that if it's been going for a while, then there's the danger of the collapse of the floor above, because we may be heading into an area that's okay to begin with, but the fire's been burning in another part of that basement, and maybe is now burnt through the floor or weakened the supporting floor joists, and now we have danger of collapse of the floor above us coming down onto us. So for those reasons, I would say that basement fires present the biggest danger for firefighters.
Oh wow, that was pretty scary. I don't think I can put up with anything like that. Anyways, my next question. What do you advise or suggest to our community in order to avoid any accidents, when it comes to fire at home or at the workplace?
The last thing I wanted to talk to you guys about quickly before I say goodbye is just if you ever get in a situation where you do have a fire starting as you're cooking, excuse me, and that's either in your oven or on top of the stove, is the first thing you want to do is turn off the stove, turn off the burner if you can reach over it without burning yourself. Remove the pot if you can from the heat, if you can get it by the handle. Same if there's a fire inside the oven. Again, you want to reduce the heat by turning off the oven. What you don't want to do specifically is when you don't want to throw water. You don't want to throw water on anything that has grease in it, because obviously maybe in your science class you guys have gone over the fact that oil and water don't mix. And so what happens is often people think, okay, there's a fire, what am I going to do? I'm going to throw water on it. Well, in a kitchen and a grease fire, that's probably the worst thing you can do, because as we said, oil and water don't mix. So when you add water to boiling oil, you're going to displace that oil, and you're going to cause almost like a miniature explosion, and the oil is going to spread onto the other parts of your kitchen, the cupboards, the countertop, and whatever oil that was burning that lands on those areas is going to continue to burn. So basically by adding water, you're spreading the fire faster than you would normally. So the main thing you want to do is cut the heat. If you can't reach across initially to cut the heat, then you should put a lid on the pot. If you don't have a lid handy, you could even grab a cookie sheet, something to cover. Okay, because to stop a fire, you got to reduce the heat, or you got to reduce the fuel, or you got to reduce the oxygen to the point where the fire is starving from any of those three things. And if you can stop any of those three things, okay, the fuel, the heat, or the oxygen, then you're going to stop the fire from happening. So again, remember, don't throw water on a grease fire.
I just want to thank you, Coach Tickell, for being with us here today. And
I just wanted to take a second to thank you guys as well for inviting me to come chat. As maybe Mr. Ernesto told you, I was a teacher in the school there, Philemon Wright, for close to 10 years, and then switched to the fire department around almost 12 years ago now. And so it's it was a big change in careers, but it wasn't that I didn't like teaching. It was just I was ready for a new challenge, and often you guys will feel that way throughout your lives as well. Either you'll be completely sold on something, or you want to try a few different things. But for me, a big part of being a teacher in the school was also coaching, and that's why I've continued to come to the school and coach and build the relationships that I've had with some of the student athletes that are at the school. And so I'll be happy to be back there in the fall coaching again, as long as everything is going ahead as scheduled, which as we all know, everything is kind of up in the air at this point in time. But I just want to wish you guys a good summer, and hopefully we're able to do the things we all love to do throughout the summer, and that if things come back in the fall as normal, that everybody is happy and healthy and obviously fully rested after this period in time. So thanks again for having me, and hope to talk to you guys soon. Take care.
all right, this is it for today, guys. I appreciate your time. That was the interview with Coach James Tickell, firefighter, works for the Ottawa Fire Department, and also head coach of the Philemon Wright senior football team. So stay tuned. There's more to come here in Ernie's Kitchen. Take care.